Hey, me again. I'm here to talk about an issue that I think exists inside the space settlement community. I think there's a problem that we have that we're not entirely addressing, and that's one of communication. I'm not trying to imply that anyone watching this is a gibbering idiot who can't hold a conversation with the average person, but do me a favor and go to any blog or forum where you discuss space development or space settlement, and try to read it from the perspective of someone who's never heard of this field before in their lives. It's a little surprising and pretty jarring. When we talk about space settlement and development, we do it with a whole world of passion, but we also don't necessarily think about who might actually be reading. And sometimes the way how we talk about these things end up being off-putting and difficult for the people to understand. And definitely makes it very difficult for other people to get into the subject. Almost every technical field has this issue, and it stems from the fact that the subject is complicated and difficult. And we, as people who already understand the basics, would like to talk about the more complicated and more difficult parts of it, while forgetting that these sometimes make it difficult for other people who aren't part of our world already to get integrated and get interested in space settlement. I'm not suggesting that we stop having these conversations. Far from it. We should continue to talk about space settlement and space development as much as possible. This whole show says that. What I am saying is that I think we need to divert a little bit of energy into making more accessible and more generally interesting articles and topics and discussions about space settlement. Being consciously aware of how the public views us, and trying to change the conversation a little bit. I'm not suggesting that we all stop talking about the tensile strength of inflatables, or whatever it is that we're talking about this week. But I am saying that perhaps it's time that we think about how those conversations and how those topics look to outsiders, and maybe spend a little time and effort on making topics and discussions and blog posts that are accessible to the average person. Well, actually I am kind of saying that we should probably stop talking quite so much about the tensile strength of inflatables and exactly which rocket or which piece of technology will propel space settlement into the future. I mean, if you look at any of the blogs and forums, it's basically full of hundreds of angel investor traps desperately trying to get some funding for some idea that they have. There are places for that, and I'm not really sure it's doing as many favors by allowing that conversation to dominate the topic no matter where it is. We all fell in love with space settlement through Gerard O'Neill's The High Frontier, or Tia Heppenheimer, or one of those other incredibly intelligent, wonderfully verbose and technical people who knew the science really well and could talk about it for days. But you'll notice that The High Frontier doesn't have a lot of hard technical science in it. It has a lot of beautiful imagery, and it has a lot of incredible discussions about the possibilities of this science. So does T.J. Heppenheimer's book, and so does most of the other books that we listen to or read about space settlement in. It's because these people understood the importance of a good public outreach program. You'll notice NASA doesn't often talk about the exact fuel ratios of their rockets when they're talking to people on social media and reaching out to people. It's because to bring people around to their side, they know that that technical knowledge isn't necessarily the most important thing you can be talking about at any one time. Gerard O'Neill and Tia Heppenheimer understood that if they talked excessively about how this kind of radiation shielding can reduce relative delta ratios by 2.6%, no one would care about space settlement. But they understood that if they talk about the cool things, the amazing sights, and the potential for human expansion, well, they made the NSS and tons of other organizations that did incredible things for furthering space settlement and space development. All I'm saying is that the issue of public outreach is important, regardless of who you think is going to settle space, be it an agency, some government, or a billionaire playboy philanthropist of some kind. It doesn't really matter. The important thing is that the public needs to be on side, no matter what. And it sort of falls to us to make sure that that happens. So get out there and write some accessible information. Write an article about what you think is really important to space settlement and make it so that an average person off the street could read it and understand it. Let them know why you're passionate in words that they understand and don't need to read 300 pages of some book somewhere to understand what it means. Anyway, just a thought.